The effects of parental absence on childhood development, evidence from left behind children in China. An article review from an article published in the National Library of Medicine by Mingzi Mao, Linju Zhang, and Haifeng Zhang. It's important to define a few terms before diving into the content, as the research was done and published in China, where some terms are different than the terms we use here. In China, they use left behind children to define their children who are suffering from parental absence. In China, it's very common for parents to migrate to rural areas to find work. And those children whose parents have to leave are referred to as left behind children, or LBCs. Those whose parents have not migrated away or left for other reasons are called non-left behind children. Another important variable to define that will be used later in the study is called Hukou type, which defines neighborhood characteristics, and it can often determine your rights and your special privileges based off the neighborhood that you live in. The following article had two main research questions, mainly looking at the short-term and long-term effects of parental absence and what that would do to a child, specifically during school age. They were wondering what the effects of parental absence on students in school settings would do short-term, and then what the effects of absent parents on educational achievements for students, looking at what it would do long-term, how it would affect their aspirations post-grade school. In developing those research questions, the three authors and researchers harbored data from two data collections done nationally in China. Those were collections published by universities and done on the national level. The authors were careful to consider both cognitive and non-cognitive development of children. They wanted to focus on both in school settings. And they thought it was important to do this research now, as there was a lack thereof in China, and there was a recent increase in migration and leaving of parents. The authors had quite a few hypotheses, those being that left behind children would have lower academic and cognitive scores. They would be less likely to attend college. They would be more likely to have mental problems and more likely to resist effort in a classroom. Specifically, the absence of maternal figures would yield problems within a school setting for children in comparison with paternal absence. And then I thought it was important to note that the researchers did not think that non-left behind children would be affected by having companionship of left behind children in the classroom setting. The researchers came up with this formula here to denote the effects of parental absence and kind of predict a numerical quality based off the values here. The I being, just to name a few of the variables, the I being the child, the LBC obviously representing specifically left behind children, parental absence representing obviously the lack thereof a child, C representing the classroom size, and S representing the school, amongst other variables. It's important to note that the study only observed middle school age children who were considered left behind. They asked them survey questions and compared them with non-left behind children who they asked the same questions to. It's important to note that middle school in China begins in 7th grade and goes for 3 years. So it represents 7th to 10th grade here. The study observed many variables, some being age, ethnicity, number of siblings, the education level of your parents, the size of your classroom, your Hako type, again, that's your neighborhood characteristics, your gender. The researchers collected data from the schools on your cognitive scores, your midterm averages, your Chinese, math, and English scores. They also asked the participants' feelings about your school, your home life, your peers, companionship, friendships, etc. They asked a number of questions about your likelihood to be late to class, how bored you felt, if you hoped to transfer to another school, whether you expected to attend college, etc. Based on those questions and the data collected from the school, they were able to come up with results that were pretty consistent with their hypotheses. The following results are reflected on a points scale, but it translates directly to a percentage as well. So parental absence decreased cognitive and academic scores by 2.612 points on average. So again, that would be comparable with 2.612% on a test. Parental absence decreased a child's likelihood to attend a post-grade school or a college by 2.2 points on average. And then they did conclude that the presence of a left behind child would not have an effect on a non left behind child in the classroom. And then this was the exact influence on testing scores. Across the board, left behind children did have lower testing scores than non left behind children by a pretty significant rate there. That shows academic and cognitive, and then it also shows their likelihood that they perceived to attend college post grade school. From the study, the researchers gathered that they could probably expect to see that China's human capital would be decreasing in the next few decades based on the influence and increase in parental absence that grade school children were experiencing, and that the government should allot more resources to left behind children to try to deter this impact that they were seeing, and that left behind children would have a less healthy mental status and would be hesitant to give forth the desired effort in the classroom environment. The study had only a few limitations that the researchers noticed, but they were worth noting. They did only examine middle school age children. Parental absence affects children of all ages, while the study only looked at children of about ages 12 to 15, 16. It would be important to expand and gather data from children of all ages. They also did not include any information about family income and how that might affect the data. Parents often leave because of economic troubles, and especially in China, it's very common for parents to migrate to make money to send home. So including information about family income might have changed the analysis of their data a bit. I only had one recommended revision for the data. I thought that the study might have benefited from including the results in a bar graph or a line graph instead of just a table and word form. It might have increased reader interpretation and been beneficial to those that were receiving the study. I thought it just might have made it a little bit easier to interpret. Other than that, it was a great article, and I learned a lot.